Amud Yomi, Tractate Bava Batra, page 85a. This is episode 13 in the Amud Yomi series that just started in June. Started as of June 1st. And the Amud, for today is 85a of Bava Batra, with the words Kilyo shel Adam kone lo bechol makom. Kilyo shel Adam kone lo bechol makom chutz mireshus harabim. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Tamar Tamayu v'il b'shus harabim. A person's vessels affect acquisition of any item placed inside them for him in any place in which they are situated, except for the public domain. And Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish both say, even in the public domain, one's vessels affect acquisition of items placed in them. Amarav Papa, Loi pligi kan b'shus harabim kan besimto. Ramai karola b'reshus harabim shein lo reshus hayochid. Rav Papa said, these Amoraim do not disagree. Here, when Rav and Shmuel state that one's vessel does not affect acquisition for him, they are speaking of a vessel placed in the public domain. There, when Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish state that his vessel affects acquisition on his behalf, they are referring to a vessel located in an alleyway. And why do they call an alleyway the public domain? The reason is that an alleyway is not a private domain. The Gemara points out, so too, it is reasonable to interpret Rabbi Yochanan's statement in this manner. As Rabbi Abahu says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, a person's vessels affect acquisition for him in any place where he has permission to keep them. It can be inferred from here. In a location where he has permission to keep them, yes, his vessels affect acquisition for him. But in a place where he does not have permission to keep his vessels, they do not affect acquisition for him. And one has permission to keep his vessels in an alleyway, but not in the public domain. The Gemara affirms, conclude from this statement that when Rabbi Yochanan referred to the public domain, he meant an alleyway. Tashima arba midos b'mochrin. עד שלא נסמא למידה במויכר. מי שנסמא למידה ללוקח, במה דברים אמורים? במידה שאינו של שניהם, אבל אם הייתה מידה של אחד מהם, ראשון קודם. The Gemara suggests coming to hear a difficulty from a Braita. There are 4 cases with regard to sellers, meaning 4 methods through which merchandise is acquired. When the seller measures merchandise for the buyer before the measuring vessel has been filled, the merchandise in the vessel still belongs to the seller, and he can change his mind and cancel the sale. Once the measuring vessel has been filled, the merchandise belongs to the buyer. In what case is this statement said? It is said when the seller measures with a measuring vessel that does not belong to either of them. But if the measuring vessel belonged to one of them, the buyer acquires the items of sale one by one as they are placed in the measuring vessel. Bama devarim amurim ברשוס הרבים ובחצר שאינו של שניהן, אבל ברשוס מויכר לא יקונה עד שיג בהנה או עד שיוציאנה ברשוסו. ברשוס לוקח כיוון שקיבל עליו מויכל, קונה לוקח ברשותו לו, המופקדים אצלו, לא קנה עד שיקבל עליו, או עד שיזכור אס מקומן. In what case is this statement said? It is said when the seller measures the items in the public domain or in a courtyard that does not belong to either of them, but if it happens in the domain of the seller, the buyer does not acquire the merchandise until he lifts the measuring vessel or until he moves it out of the domain of the seller. If it is in the domain of the buyer, once the seller accepts upon himself to sell, the buyer acquires it. If the merchandise is located in the domain of this individual with whom it had been deposited, the buyer does not acquire it until the bailee accepts upon himself to designate a place where the merchandise is to be stored for the buyer, or until the buyer rents from the bailee the place where the merchandise is situated. In any event, this Batra teaches with regard to a transaction in the public domain or in a courtyard that does not belong to either of them, that if the measuring vessel belonged to one of them, the buyer acquires the items of sale one by one as they are placed in the vessel.